everyone. Good morning from Bangkok, from the UN Center. We have participants who are present in person, participants online, both from government and from older people themselves. This session aims at providing and sharing the voice of older people, see what older people think about their situation, their perspectives, their future, what has been achieved. So before we go on, in the name of the co-hosts who are the Chao Foundation leading this event, the UNFPA, ESCAP, and HelpAge, Dr. Marianne Chao will give have some welcome words. So Dr. Marianne Chao, please.
Good morning, Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I feel tremendously proud, gratified, and privileged to stand here this morning to open this session for older people to have a direct dialogue at the United Nations, at UNESCAP, the pinnacle organization where member states come to deliberate policies and practices that benefit their citizens. First of all, it's just really cool for this to happen, for all the older people to travel here, this opportunity. But more importantly, it is important to hear their voices. Firstly, a lot of times, myself included, always think we know what they need and want, right? We're experts, we work with older people, we do research, we think we know. And I learned very early on that we have often no idea, actually. I'll share a personal story. Some years ago, my mother had to get a brain surgery, rather cutting edge and rather dangerous. So the siblings, myself, decided that, well, we discussed how we'd go and take care of her after the surgery. So as just a coincidence, I was talking to my mother and I said, oh, don't worry, after surgery, I'll be there to see you. There was a pause. So she said, after I survive the surgery, I don't need to see you. I want to see you before I go in. Now, well, none of us ever thought of that, but it made perfect sense from her perspective. And one speaker, I think a younger speaker from Vietnam had said, we were never there. I mean, we can sort of understand what a younger person thinks because we've been there once before. But for those of us, even though I'm getting there myself, who are not yet old, have no idea what an older person's perspectives are, about what their lives are, what their needs are, what their aspirations are. So it's so important to listen to them. And yet, most of the time, we don't. As a doctor, so many times I've observed that if an older person goes see a doctor with a family member, they only talk to the family member, as an older person is invisible and certainly mute. Sometimes even in families, I go out to lunch on Sundays, and a lot of families have lunch together. Everyone's talking, and all you see is this bubble of silence around the older person eating quietly by themselves. No one seems to be engaging with the older person. And really struck me when I started working in Singapore 30 years ago, how mute and invisible older people are. In a country in Asia where the tradition is to value older people, somewhere along the line, older people lost their status, lost their role, and became very invisible and mute. I remember asking this older gentleman what he wanted for breakfast, a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And he said, no, nothing for me. And after great insistence, she said, well, whatever you want. Until sometime later, he can say, I want coffee with 2 sugar and milk. That's been working with them to give them the space to feel that they have the right to ask for what they need. It really hurt me tremendously that he didn't even feel that he has a right to ask for a beverage of his choice. And that's not just beverage, it's across many, many situations. So it's so important that we make a space for their voices to be heard. How do we, whether it's a nation or nonprofit or family, plan for their benefit? We have no idea what they're thinking about or what they wish. So for me to sit here and stand here and see a panel of older people who have been talking to their peers and then representing their voices here at UNESCAP, to me is tremendously joyful. So at this moment, I just want to thank all the partners who make this possible. certainly you and ESCAP, you and FPA, Help Age, and all the seniors that came all the way here to have this conversation. So I feel tremendously grateful to have this opportunity to have a role in it. So at this moment, I just want to leave the conversation for the conversation to start. Thank you very much.
May I make some suggestions for those who are online? Please make sure that when you intervene, unmute your phone or unmute your microphone. Otherwise, keep it muted, but keep your cameras on. This session is recorded and is also being shared in YouTube Live. May I introduce some of our friends who have the distinction of being senior citizens, and they are going to share with us his life experiences today. But this is the third stage of a consultation that has taken place in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There have been 2 online consultations, and the countries participating, all the people participating from Bangladesh, from Cambodia, from Fiji, from India, from Indonesia, from Japan, Malaysia, Mongolia, Nepal, Pakistan, People's Republic of China, Philippines, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. We thank all of them for their views, their comments during those 2 online sessions. But today we have a wonderful group of people who managed to make it to Bangkok. And I want to introduce each of them. May I introduce Mr. Bal Krishna Tapamagar. He is from Nepal. Mr. Bal is a hyperactive senior citizen, allow me to say. He is in multiple activities related to the lives of older people in Nepal, multiple care homes, institutions promoting active aging, networking. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Bal. Then we have Mr. Matthew Charan, my old friend. When I met Matthew 20 or so years ago, we were both in our middle ages. But now Matthew is a civil society advocate in India, strongly active, strongly connected, an author of several books about aging, from aging and development. Welcome, Matthew. Next one, we have Mr. Yoshiro Ichi. He's a retired, where Mr. Yoshiro is here. Mr. Yoshiro is a retired civil servant from Japan, but he assumed that retirement was not going into an idle stage of life. He was telling me this morning, he is more active today than when he was in active work. Welcome, Mr. Yoshiro. Ms. Eva Sabdono, she is a personality in Asia and in all the forums related to the older people's rights, population aging. Ms. Eva gave us an introduction at the beginning of this MIPA Force review. Welcome, Eva. I call her Mama Eva because she has this overarching motherly attitude towards all those who are half a year younger than her. We have Ms. Nguyen Tam, chairwoman of an OPA in Vietnam. Ms. Tam will share with us the experience of how she can connect at community levels. Ms. Tam, you're very welcome. Mrs. Wari Alakon. Where are you, Mrs. Wari? Here you are. Mrs. Wari is from Malaysia. She is an example of lifelong learning. When she came to senior citizen stage of life, she said that it is a moment where I can boost up my learning and promote the learning of others who are also senior citizens. Thank you, Mrs. Wari. Ms. Oranuch, where are you, Ms. Oranuch? Ms. Oranuch Kun Oranuch is a founder of For Oldie in Thailand, and Ms. Oranuch is another person who is always looking at ways of connecting people, promoting ways of care, social enterprises, social activities related to older people, and we'll be glad to hear from her experiences too. Thank you, Ms. Oranuch. Ms. Uvanda from Cambodia. Ms. Uvanda is the chairwoman of the Cambodia Aging Network, also chairperson of an OPA organization of Older People Association in Cambodia, and that she did not stay only at the level of one OPA. She is promoting the networking of this type of organizations. And last but not least, the star, my favorite senior citizen, I have to admit, Ms. Ratnan from Singapore. You will see how fiery and punchy she is. It's a pleasure to have you here, Ms. Ratnam. I don't want to mention the age of each one, but the average age of this selected group, this kind group who came to Bangkok, is 71 years old. So they have the experience of the life lived, but they also have the power of the life, the years ahead of them. So this is the group that we have in life, and we also have a large number of participants joining online. Thank you so much, all of you, for having come today. The next step in the script that we have made, so let me go through it, is we will present 4 topics that were discussed during the days, during the online discussions. And they are, can you click? First was a question that we asked to all older people online, no? There were 50, 60 participants saying, being an older person in the 21st century, what has changed? What has changed in the lives of older people compared to their parents' generation? See how your parents live and how you live. What is the difference since, especially in the last 20 years, since MIPA was agreed? The second question was, what can we tell governments gathered here today, some of them here, others online, what we see as success and gaps in ensuring that older people have their rights protected and the life secure, safe, and they live life, secure, safe lives. And the third one is, how can we foster social connections in the context of increased loneliness? That was an issue that came repeatedly. Isolation, in some cases, abuse of older people. What can we share in particular about the COVID and the pandemic situation in the last 2 years, the lockdowns and all that? And finally, the last question that we discussed, the last large topic, is how do we see the future? How older people see the future? Thinking not only of them as older people, but future generations of older people. And each of those topics will be discussed separately. We'll give some time for each of one. May I introduce now the presenter of the summary points of the first point that we discussed, who is Mr. Kim SangHung from the Republic of Korea. Is Mr. Kim online?
Yes. Good morning from Seoul, Korea. And thank you, Mr. Klian.
We cannot see you yet.
How strange.
There you are, Mr. Kim. Welcome. So please go ahead.
Good morning from Seoul, Korea. And thank you, Mr. Klian. In recollection, MIPA made a beautiful start 20 years ago. And today, as a result, we aged people are no longer forgotten. As in this conference today, please accept my gratitude to this conference this morning. Today, I am 89 years and 9 months old. My generation has traversed the age of primitive radio to the digital age and has faced new social changes on an enormous scale no mankind generation has ever experienced before. So many things have changed in my lifetime. In my parents' generation, for example, people hardly survived 60 years. Survival up to 60 years was so rare and special that traditionally it was an occasion of entire village celebration. If anyone ever survived 60 years, under the circumstance of the average lifetime of 50 or less in my parent generation, the traditional extended family system in Korea was beautiful, as older people did not suffer from old age-related diseases, loneliness, and living expenses as they do today in their short longevity. My previous generation was used to reading newspapers, writing letters, and face-to-face interactions. Today, we are forced to watch TV, use internet for communication, and live with digital technology for routine day-to-day affairs. We are forced to learn how to use a new telephone system and all kinds of new electronic machines almost every day. The fast stream of new technology and old age forgetfulness make older people powerless and sad. Older people try hard to catch up, but the changes are too fast now. In the wake of these social changes, traditional extended family system slowly gave way to a nuclear family system. For example, I was the second child of 6 brothers and sisters, the average size of a family at that time. These days, you hardly find any family half of this size. No child or single child family seem to be the average size of a family these days. Sons and daughters have their hands full with new duties to their time today. They are no longer in the same situation as in the past of looking after their aged parents for many years. Therefore, older people now must be trained to face and accept the new reality that they can no longer rely on their offspring for living for many years after their retirement. We are deeply saddened when our collective memory and rich experience receive less and less attention from young generation. For example, the ability to overcome hardship in my generation is lost when it is no longer the concern of young generation. It is indeed painful to watch. Some important part of history is already lost when it comes to the next generation. I'm convinced old-aged people must be also disciplined to be better prepared to embrace solitude and a more modest lifestyle, including certain aspects of group life when they can no longer sustain themselves physically, as there is no substitute for family. We older people must learn to be happy with new friends in group life. In the event, we are physically unable to sustain ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. Very clear presentation, discussion on how lives have changed in one generation. And we must be aware this is the largest, the biggest change that has ever happened from one generation to other in history. Somebody was in the online sessions was mentioning that the biggest technological advance for the parents' generation was getting a fridge at home. And look where we are now. May we have some comments from Professor Gu from China? Maybe you want to shortly add to this comment. Are you online? There you are, Professor Gu. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to start with concur what Dr. Kim of South Korea just said. A lot of changes happened in the very short period, and due to a lot of factors when we talk about the population aging. One is, as he said, fertility. As in my family, I have 6 brothers and sisters, as Dr. Kim. So when my parents became old, brothers and sisters can take care of it in turn, so can share the burden. But now people tend to have less children. So the burden, care burden, concentrated on a few of them. So it will become very difficult. Another fact is, I think particularly in China, urbanization. China has been a rural-dominated society for 1,000 years. But since the 1980s, it suddenly become rapidly urbanized. Urbanization caused a lot of people moving from rural area to urban area, which most are young people. So people tend to think fertility tend to be higher than in urban area, so the elderly support is a better condition, which is not true. Because the kids moved away, the old people in rural area tend to be in a more difficult situation than people in urban areas. Moreover, there was no social security system in the rural areas in China yet. China has been a society with no social security tradition, rely on kids to support themselves when they get old. Now, kids become less, and also they moved away. But the social security is not forthcoming. So how to survive will become a big issue, challenges. So I appreciate ESCAP, Help Aging, Town Foundation. You organized, sponsored such occasion. People attend this meeting not as decision makers, not as research scholars, but as an old person, which we can reflect what really older people think about and what they encounter about. I enjoyed the meeting and look forward to more discussion with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gu. We had Mr. Khalid from Pakistan who was going to make some comments, but he is having some connection problems. But can we ask Mr. Ichi from Japan very shortly to tell us what is it like being an older person now in Japan today?
Okay. Now I'm age 65. I'm going to be age 66. So in Japan, I'm categorized as younger, older people. So I just represent the younger, older people in Japan, as there are lots of aspects in older people. So I cannot refer too much for the later older person's aspects. But firstly, as younger, older generation in Japan, as the healthy life longevity is extending year by year, the physical fitness as well as mental fitness of our generation is not like the 20 years ago's old people like our generation. We are more fit physically as well as mentally. That is one very clear particularity of our character. The second one is that reflecting the present Japanese society as super aging society with less children. Now, Japan is facing the shortage of workforce. So now, for the younger, older generation, we are expected to be a part of active workforce of the country. So the government also promote us to continue to work, providing lots of policy arrangement, giving more pension. If we defer our pension about 5 years, then we can get more pension in the later, whereas we can continue to work. And at the same time, the retirement age, also the government recommends the companies to extend it. Before it was 60, now 65. Now and the government is requesting all the companies to extend the retirement age up to 70 or 75. So with this arrangement by the government, we are encouraged to participate or continue to work as our physical fitness and mental fitness is quite healthy situation. So this is the situation of older people in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ichi. Maybe we can open the floor to those who are online and would like to talk. May I remind each of them, we don't need a large description of the situation of a country, we just need to sharp statements of your experience as an older person in the topic that is being discussed. Who do we have? Ms. Nila from Sri Lanka. Could you make a statement? Maybe keep it to 1.5 minutes. Thank you. Are you online, Ms. Nila?
Thank you by giving this opportunity to Sri Lanka. And also, like on the 24th discussion, as I told you that we should appreciate this opportunity because in the context of Sri Lanka, as you said that we have 22 million population, out of that 6.9 are female and 5.5 are male. But the thing is that we are facing for an economic crisis these days. Government is taking best efforts to get rid of this economic source. Our first thing is that the longevity as well as the food security. Food security, it is most important in Sri Lanka. As you know that we are facing for the economic crisis. And also I want to highlight here, we should make the government policies with the interference of the government. After retirement of all these people, all the older people, they all are facing for this economic crisis. Government intervention should be, as I told you, that government intervention should be started from policy making. That means national, provincial, and community level. And also our government can provide age-friendly environment, develop the healthcare system, provide universal social insurance and social protection. Here I have to discuss here in Sri Lankan context, as you know that Sri Lanka is the fast aging nations among Asia. So that of course we have to consider, because due to the impact of globalization, I want to highlight here that ensure income security and social protection. Those two things are also, I think, going to be discussed in the seminar. We'll give our contribution in the future also. Thank you.
Am I with the microphone on? Yes. Can I ask anybody from the audience, open the floor, raise your hand? We are not sure if Dr. Charan in Rajasthan, India was raising his hand. What is it to be old today?
Yes, I am about 72 years old, and on the day of 1st July, there is a International Day of Doctors Day. Best way is that we have got three wordings, that is compensate, contribute, and compromise. So we have the compensation as compensate and the contribution. Contribution is regarding the old age. They have to be with the family, because in India considered to be the backbone. Old age considered to be the backbone of a family. And more so, there is an economical up and downs, and still we are having the lot of issues regarding the affection among the family, the learning process, and we have to compromise so many times regarding the so many issues, because our country is second to in the world as a population is concerned, and there is always change of number of older persons. So far, it is already known to the system. And one more thing is that there should be a basic knowledge to do primary health services at odd hours, like fuel reducing, dehydration reducing, diarrhea controlling. Meanwhile, the medical aid is going to happen. This is the simplest way of approaching to such rural areas where the facilities are less, where the medical aids are less, and it is already taught. But no, it is a practice that nobody does sponging regarding the temperature is too lowered. It's practically education is required, health education is required among those persons who are deprived of insurance, deprived of informations. Thank you very much for kind consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Charan. He was speaking from Rajasthan in India. Anybody asking for the floor? Maybe we can go to our friends here. What is it like to be an older person in the 21st century? What is it like to be an older person today? Ms. Eva, would you like to comment on that?
How is it like to be an older person in the 21st century? I think there are many progress made by the government and by the older persons themselves. But we have the challenges of advanced technology. Many don't know how to use it. And we have smaller families. And besides of that, most of the children are overseas, not in the country. But as an older person, I still feel we are independent, and we want all older persons to be independent. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. I want to ask Ms. Ratnan, you are a 65-year-old one. Can I ask you, how difficult was it to gather, to get to speed in technology, in information technology, and use of telephones, messaging, and all that?
When I felt lonely, loneliness is not felt, it is created by ourselves. By isolating ourselves, we create it. So, and technology was coming fast, and I see all my grandchildren, children all busy with their computers and handphones. I felt I must go out and do something about it. So I went to the community center in my area, and there I found the South Foundation teaching elders how to handle the handphone. And that is the day I bought my handphone. Before that, I had a small one, and I didn't know about handphones. When I went there, the volunteer taught me how to set up my name, how to put in a number, everything from A. So after that, I started learning. Today, I'm so well versed. I think I'm very proud of myself that I took a step forward to do and to go and be a better person and to keep up with the youths of today. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a beautiful example of also intergenerational cooperation, because it is the young who were teaching, sharing with the old the knowledge of that. But once the old get online, they say that they never leave the online. And I understand that you keep connection with your children, with your family, with the whole world.
Yes, I do keep connecting with the whole world. With my sisters in India, my nephews in Dubai, my cousins in China, and my son working in Indonesia. So, and a few other countries, I keep on going and going. And then I go into YouTube, I go into Netflix and watch movies, and I go into the Facebook and read stories. So I am a very proud person. At my age, 85. Thank you.
I misunderstood you. I thought you were 65, but you said 85? 85. I think we are an example for all of us of healthy aging, active aging. Thank you. Ms. Mala Kapoor from India, the short statement, please.
Hello. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm very happy to hear the experiences and voices of older people. I just want to share that I feel this century has brought a change in the mindset. Older people, and I'm also 66 years now, and the concept has come for self-care. The concept has come for looking after oneself. The dependency element, which was seen quite a bit in last century, is kind of going. People now want to do what they like to do. They want to express themselves. They want to find their own space. And I think the government policy is also changing. We are looking at retirement options. We are looking at pension for everybody so that we can make them independent and not dependent. So there is a mindset change which has to be celebrated. And I'm very happy to hear some of the people here voicing how they have been able to facilitate and empower themselves to be able to cope with the changing world in a very progressive manner. So I think this change has to be welcomed, and we have to encourage more people, even in families where we are seeing intergenerational support. It is the concept is now coming that do what you can, be a support to each other, but don't burden yourself. We are talking of respite care. We are talking of facilities which provide recreation, time for oneself. So these are very positive developments, and I'm happy that this is happening in many parts of the world. Thank you very much for opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Kapoor. It was brilliant. Very well said. Thank you for those ideas. Do we have any additional comment on this? If not, do you? Sorry, the representative
good morning.
of the Philippines. Welcome,
Yes, I just would like to ask if this body has considered the divide between the rich and the poor, especially in the Philippines. I think about 1/3 of the senior citizens are recipients of the stipends, which means they don't have access to cell phones at the very least. And the things that we're considering here might not be applicable to them. So perhaps we should consider something that will, bridge that divide, even only in terms of technical knowledge or pertaining to the use of IT communication, for that matter. I think I would personally want to ask this assembly to consider programs on bridging that, because if we talk to people who are able, whose children are capable of providing them with cell phones and laptops and equipments, then there is no problem. But when you go to the grassroots, the problem that lies really is the great divide between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. Okay. Do anybody want to comment on that? Otherwise, I'll comment. I think the comment you make is conducive that there is a convergence of policies of government, community action, and individual responsibilities that have to build into that. But there is a framework that has to be given by governments in terms of policies. You mentioned the stipend, for example, for poor older people, no? And I think some countries have taken that in terms of universal approaches to lift people from poverty. But we will talk about that topic immediately afterwards. Thank you for your comment. May we go to the next point? Maybe you will comment later. We have more requests, but we are running out of time. We want to move to the second topic, second question. And some of these topics are points are very interrelated. May I ask Mr. Matthew Charan to present the conclusions of the previous discussions that we had as older people, the key points that came out, and to initiate the discussion on this topic. Matthew.
Thank you, Eduardo, for inviting me. It's about 20 years and 48 days since MIPA was signed and declared. And I have been moderating the discussion between many older people across continents to hear about this area. And some of them say that universal health care has only been a mirage. It's a dream. Maybe not, especially in Asian countries, it has not been implemented in full. For example, a poor old person in Rajasthan will have to travel 2 kilometers in a hot sand to reach a health center if they wish to even check their blood pressure. So that is the state of it. And comprehensive health and care systems have been negligent. And if you look at the rise of non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and arthritis and other groups, elderly women face a lot of problems in this kind of care. And as you all know, older women live longer than older men. And of course, Many of them are not like Mrs. Ratnam, who sends me a WhatsApp message at 6 a.m. today. So, so bulk of them are not there. And if you look at the digital divide, again, older women suffer more digital illiteracy than men. So these are some of the areas that we have. And MIPA said there should be employment opportunities for all older persons who want to work. But the situation is, in my country also, older people don't even get 100 days of work, especially in agricultural areas and in farm areas, etc. So when you have less than 100 days of work, you can imagine the state of poverty in which older people are living. And children have been migrating. So many people have said in their thing that because of migration, we do not even get remittances from the children who have migrated, and we are suffering alone. And the situation in rural areas is much worse than in urban areas. And if you look at the social protection system, of course, we have been arguing for a universal pension in many countries. And what has happened is, even in countries like Thailand and in Nepal, they have declared a universal pension. But bulk of the countries have not even provided this kind. And in my country, we give an undignified $3 a month pension to many older people. And in $3 a month, I don't think anybody can survive at such a low level of social assistance. Of course, I have been a strong advocate for universal pension, and we have advocated to many governments, but nothing has been done so far. And if you look at health systems, we are still to provide health in many districts of the country. And the last count we had is only about 200 of the 707 districts have any form of health care. And when we were talking about financial literacy and financial planning, we found that many of them did not save enough money to have a reasonable income in old age. Either their incomes were so low that they do not have much of savings, and in many people who even had savings, one single health episode had destroyed most of their savings, and there was no form of health insurance or medical care which was available. So as a result of it, of course, financial literacy and planning should be given more to the younger people who will grow old tomorrow. But the older people who have arrived there, like me, of course, we should have learnt it 10 or 20 years ago, but it has not happened. So on the whole, I think we have to concentrate on providing a universal pension, and also attempt that those who want to work even in old age should be provided work. It is not true that we should try to employ them in the same sector where they worked in. They could do alternate jobs in old age. They could do they could be trained in alternate skills. There is no form of retraining retired people. And so we need to do that. And so this is, in summary, some of the voices that came about. And older people in many countries are living lives of undignified state, and as a result, I think government should do more to provide the rights for older people. I'm going to stop here.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. A very good summary. All these points came up in the discussion between older people. You summarized very well. You mentioned this, the universal pension, the universal old age allowance, and we have experiences. Japan provides universal income security. Nepal, being a poor country, provides that, and Thailand, middle income country, of course, provides that. I witnessed myself in 2008 when the 500 baht scheme became universal, no? Ms. Oranuch, can you tell us, from Thailand, can you tell us the experience of the social pension, the old age allowance in your country?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. For Thailand, we have our own age allowance in 2008. And this cover everyone who the age of 60. It has a gradually improved, and people who are 70 or 80 old age will receive more also. Then, but the needed for the amount for the needed not enough yet. And so much other persons continue to work in the informal section. Even though the amount is small, I know many older persons who are poor, but would be even poorer if they did not have the own age allowance. It means allowance is a very important and a big dream of the elderly. It not benefit only for the elderly, it means for the family, especially for the young, for their children to happy to work and don't worry about their elderly at home. That's mean our allowance. That another thing is that you mentioned. Our allowance is not pension. Yes, we really want to ask our government to give our pension law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are you hearing me? For reference, the universal social pension in Thailand is equivalent to $30 a month for between $30, $40, $45 a month for 60, 70, 80 years old. It increases. But you compare with the $3 a month that Matthew mentioned in India, it makes a difference. And yesterday we were in a session where it was said that the universal old age allowance in Thailand is the main source of income for the poorer sector of the population, for the poorer older people. And I think that has to do also with the point that our friend from Philippines was highlighting. Can we have a video that was sent kindly by our friends in Bangladesh? Mr.
বাংলাদেশে প্রবীণদের
Adelante.
কোনো স্বাস্থ্যসেবা নাই বললেই চলে। দরিদ্র মানুষের বিনামূল্যে সরকারি স্বাস্থ্যসেবা পাওয়া খুবই কঠিন। যদিও সরকার সকল নাগরিকের স্বাস্থ্যসেবা নিশ্চিত করতে অঙ্গীকারবদ্ধ। কোভিড-19 গত 2 বছরে আমাদের চোখে আঙ্গুল দিয়ে দেখিয়ে দিয়েছে বাংলাদেশে 1,30,00,000 প্রবীণ কম বেশি স্বাস্থ্য অধিকার থেকে বঞ্চিত হয়ে। আমরা যদি প্রবীণ স্বাস্থ্য বঞ্চনার বর্তমান চিত্র দেখি তবে দেখব বেশিরভাগ প্রবীণ স্বাস্থ্যসেবা পরিবার থেকে আগের মতো সহায়তা পাচ্ছে না। বিশেষ করে অতি প্রবীণ ও দরিদ্র প্রবীণরা। অতি প্রবীণরা অর্থ সম্পদ থাকা সত্ত্বেও সিদ্ধান্তের অভাবে স্বাস্থ্যসেবা নিতে পারছে না এবং দরিদ্র প্রবীণরা অর্থের অভাবে স্বাস্থ্যসেবা নিতে পারছে না। পরিবারের অন্য সদস্যরাও অর্থ সহযোগিতা করতে পারছে না, বিধায় প্রবীণরা স্বাস্থ্যসেবা থেকে বঞ্চিত। সবচেয়ে কঠিন অবস্থা হচ্ছে প্রাথমিক, সেকেন্ডারি ও টার্সিয়ারি পর্যায়ে প্রবীণ বান্ধব কোনো স্বাস্থ্যসেবা নেই। বাংলাদেশে সরকারি স্বাস্থ্যসেবা অনেক বিচ্ছিন্ন, কিন্তু কোথাও প্রবীণদের অন্তর্ভুক্ত করার জন্য ছাড় বা উদ্যোগ নেওয়া হয় নাই। যেমন গ্রামের দোরগোড়ায় কমিউনিটি ক্লিনিক রয়েছে, কিন্তু সেখানে প্রবীণদের বিনামূল্যে প্রেসার, ডায়াবেটিস ইত্যাদি নিরূপণ করার কোনো ব্যবস্থা বা উদ্যোগ নেওয়া হয়নি। জেলা পর্যায়ে স্বাস্থ্যসেবা প্রবীণদের বসার কোনো ব্যবস্থাও নেই। এমনকি বিশেষত হাসপাতালগুলিতে প্রবীণদের সেবা পেতে কোনো ধরনের অগ্রাধিকার দেওয়া হয় না, বরং এইসব রোগী দেখলে সেবাদাতা বিরক্ত বোধ করে। ব্যবস্থা কাঠামো আছে, ডাক্তার আছে, নার্স আছে, স্বাস্থ্যকর্মী। একটু প্রবীণদের প্রতি মনোযোগী হলে প্রবীণদের স্বাস্থ্যসেবা ইতিবাচক পরিবর্তন আনা বা হওয়া সম্ভব। আমরা প্রবীণদের সংগঠন নিয়ে কাজ করতে গিয়ে দেখেছি ডাক্তার সেবাদাতাদের সাথে প্রবীণদের স্বাস্থ্য সমস্যা নিয়ে ইতিবাচক সাড়া দেন। আমরা ইউনিয়ন ও উপজেলা পর্যায়ে স্বাস্থ্য কেন্দ্রগুলির পরিবর্তন আনতে পেরেছি। অনেক দাতব্য প্রতিষ্ঠান আছে যারা প্রবীণদের স্বাস্থ্য সেবা সহায়তা দেন, যেমন রিক চক্ষু শিবিরে প্রবীণদের জন্য অনেক অবদান। আমি একজন প্রবীণ সংগঠনের সদস্য হিসাবে মনে করি যে আমরা যদি বাংলাদেশের সর্বস্তরের মানুষ মিলেমিশে কাজ করি তাহলে আমাদের এই প্রবীণ সমস্যাগুলি সমাধান করা আমাদের দেশে সম্ভব।
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I think very powerful expression of how him, as an older person and as a leader of an OPA, sees the lack of access, lack of healthcare systems for him. Before I give the floor to the delegate from Iran who has asked to speak, may I just have online Dr. Charan again from Rajasthan? Are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity. Actually, the problems here are basic need at odd hours regarding the health is concerned. There are a lot of distances are there, lot of vehicles, etc. Assistance not available. 2 or 3 or 4 hours, if the fever is to be reduced, it is the best part, and that is a sponging to be done in any age group person. And it is practically not done because public don't know, or there is a lack of health education is concerned. Actually, like this, dehydration in summer areas, dehydration is another problem, and diarrhea is another problem. We have some achieved very good all over nation level, like TT injection given to all over, and now there is no case of tetanus so far. So the vaccination is going up and up and up already. Even our country having large population, and a practically need is required, and that to the health education, basic information is given, and practically it is to be done. We are doing best with the Ananwadis, etc. We are doing best, but the distances are there, and we will be achieving 100%. This is what I can narrate in summary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charan. The delegate from the Islamic Republic of Iran, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you very much. I was really moved by your honest and true opinions, especially the madam which said loneliness is created by self-isolation. The thing is, when we talk about universal coverage, it's like idealistic talk, like the same proverb that says aim for the sun and you might reach the clouds. But the thing is, we don't have the spectrum in the health system. The older people have a spectrum of health. On one side of the spectrum is the older people who are capable and are productive and are willing to be independent and just need a proper support for that set in place. And the other end is unfortunately the ones who require long-term care. Neither of them are properly attended to. Like if we can have a pre-retirement plan for our aging people, like reaching 65 you mentioned, we can start it from 60 to teach them that there's a flexible retirement plan and you can get investments instead of just getting a fixed pension. This is the problem with our countries in this region. Most of them lack the flexibility in policy making to respond to different kinds of needs. While you're at your younger age, if you know that in the future you can invest in something for the community even, and get back when you're older, that'll be an investment system for the social aspects of your community. Like the madam said that someone was volunteering to teach working with cell phones. It can be done actually on a municipality level. The municipalities can engage in volunteer work in all the communities to try to maintain the traditional character of that community. Because in my country also, in large cities, communities has transformed from a traditional character to just a place on the map, another point in the GPS that you pass by with a car. But that didn't used to be. We would have names, we would know different parts of our town, and we know that that part has a specific culture. And when you go there, you get in touch with that culture. Unfortunately, a lot of that is not the same. Those are the things that are the real value of older people, to be able to share what they have as a character individually and as a community. So my wish and my thanks to all the collaborators here is to push forward. If it's 21st century, 22nd century, we have to maintain the core values that we are brought up with. And the health system has to be flexible. The retirement and economic system also have to be flexible for different needs of different older peoples. As we see here, there's various inputs, various views, and I, as a health professional, I'm open to suggestions, and I'm definitely taking back to my country your messages, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Human. I think what you are saying is basically the conclusion of all the voices of older people, that we have to redesign societies in a different way, health systems, income security, work, etc. I have some requests from online from Mr. Monju from Bangladesh.
Yes.
Go ahead, Monju.
I'm pointed on our OPA leader's presentation. He is presenting on the older people's health access in Bangladesh. One of the points he raised that the Bangladesh has government facility, wide comprehensive government facility, but that facility cannot support older people. So many way in Bangladesh, lot of infrastructure health, but it is not older people friendly. So there is a policy gap also, but also gap to make the existing system older friendly. It needs reform for the well-being of, for access of the older people. And government is doing many things, but government is not thinking about the reforming the existing system to work for the older people. And similarly, the old age and universal pension, it is also started. The last month, our Prime Minister declared universal pension for the all senior citizen. But government declare budget, there is for crisis, they don't allocate any new resources, and also they cannot prescribe any reform which existing program can be more effective for secure income security for the older people. So this is the point, that we could start from our existing system where there is a lot of government structure and social structure, but unfortunately they are not working for the older people interests. So if we can bring reform this system, we can get a benefit without allocating more resource, more expenses. That is all. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Thank you, Monjo. I think it is very, very good comment that came from a senior citizen called Monju in Bangladesh, who is also my friend. May we ask about old age allowance in Nepal, Mr. Baltapa, tell us how was it created? It exists. Does it cover everyone?
Namaste and greetings. I would like to explain about the social security. So we have two kinds of social security. One is pension and one is non-pension senior citizen. Like who is working in the government, they are getting pension. That are designed on as their rank wise. So similarly, I want to explain a little bit more about the non-pension. So non-pension is Nepal government is starting from 1954 to 55. So they starting very little bit. So Nepali rupees only $100, 100 rupees, not dollar. So similarly, right now is currently is the Nepal government is providing 4,000 Nepalese rupees. This equivalent is around $4. So this is only for just giving the only for pocket money like that. So this is not helping for everything. So we should consider for to more as a requirement. Nowadays is very digital period. So everything is very expensive. So it is very hard to survive for the senior citizens. So we should increase for that situations. So I hope in future the government will consider for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tapa. We are moving to the next topic. And for that, I may invite Professor Tengku Aisan Hamid from Malaysia. I think she is well known, not only as a researcher, as a advocate, as a social scientist, but also as a senior citizen, now retired, who is active as we all want to be. Tengku Aisan, are you there? Yes, please go ahead, Tengku Aisan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Klein. And I'm sharing with you all the issues on social connection. And if you when you talk about social connection, it is an essential. It is essential for health and well-being for all ages, and especially important for promoting health in later life. And many factors influence social connection. And the first was mentioned earlier in from our delegates and also from the panelists in terms of the shrinking family size, expanded migration, and older persons are left alone. All discussion in previous session shows that the processes of demography are creating a lot of older persons to live alone and in isolation. And also at this earlier session, the delegates also shared some practices that pilot practices and pilot programs for social engagement. And many of these programs require collaborations and cooperation from various stakeholders to be successful. So therefore, we need to learn of how we can emulate all these programs and to make it sustainable, because these are important programs to create or to prevent social isolation and social loneliness among older persons. And consequent to the changes in the question in the shrinking family size, the next question will be, who will care for the older person? This question follows the change in demography, as we know that the traditional concept of families caring for the older person is being challenged by new demographic reality. Now, new modalities of care will emerge to cope with the reality, and a related aspect to this is how do we finance this new modality? In our region, many countries are still at infancy when it comes to financing for old age. Therefore, we need to identify and include many different types of families in policy and program development. And we will probably also need to use household as a proxy for families in social protection programs, because we know in our region, our social protection program is fragmented and we need to choose the best way so that we will not be overburdened for financing the social protection program. So therefore, we really need to look at programs that are preventive in nature and to start early in the part of the life course, because the advantages or disadvantages of the older person in old age is the trajectory of the earlier experiences in terms of the implementation and the effect of social policies towards them. So this is very important for us to really look at the preparation aspect in old age and preparation in the all 5 dimensions of well-being in terms of finance, health, social relationship, psychosocial aspects, and also the enabling environment, because the enabling environment is critical in terms of helping us to move through the trajectories of life and supporting and supporting us throughout life. The next, related to care and aging is gender perspective, because and many speakers have already talked about the difference between men and women in old age, and in general, women is more disadvantaged across the lifespan, and for the older person, it becomes a triple jeopardy because being old, women, and poor. So with ageism in place, this will affect how we view older women and how we design programs so that this situation will improve, so that the rights of older women are probably denied by many laws. But we also need to look at how the social behaviors of society and the older person themselves will affect their rights. So we need to look at how we can empower women to be in center stage and to also demand for their needs and their rights to be a full part of the citizen. And in relation to that, I see the role of the communities and the OPA Association, because they have expressed, especially during the COVID situation, where many community organizations were complementing smaller families and providing space and for socialization and space for healthy and active aging. So, but the OPAs in our region need support and capacity building for sustainability. The OPAs have to think beyond welfare and work towards a shared agenda of aging in the community and aging in terms of putting it mainstream so that we as older person are heard and be integrated in society and be inclusive as what is required in the SDG. And in terms of the aged community during COVID-19 lockdown, yes, many of them felt they were isolated because the 2 years lockdown and restriction, many of the persons that felt that the community organization was supportive, not only in information, but also caring for those who were isolated or vulnerable. And that also will improve their mental health and support for older person which may not be available or accessible during the lockdown. And a lot of these are done through technology, because I think the COVID-19 situation, at least in Malaysia, really stresses the need for us to look at ICT as a medium to prevent isolation and to outreach for older person that is that is not able to reach. And in that relation, in that aspect too, we will need to look at how discrimination and ageist social attitudes towards older person will not help in trying to address the issues of aging in our context, because there are a lot of initiatives that are done by older people, but they are and if they are considered as a burden from a welfare perspective, then a lot of these activities will not be promoted. And I see here the very important role of advocacy and media in reducing this discrimination and to improve attitude of the views of the older person. Media should showcase active and productive ages to influence change in attitude about aging and debunk myths of aging. In Malaysia's context, less than 5% of the poor and frail needs welfare. Basically, 95% can still contribute to nation building with the right policies and programs to address the different needs, as was mentioned by delegates from Iran. So this means that we cannot have one size policy fits all. So we need to really know and engage with older person to know what they're facing so that we can make better choices in policy designs and decision making. And I think during COVID-19, all countries realize technology is the way forward for connectivity. Therefore, COVID-19 forced all of us, society and government, to adopt the technology and IT training, as mentioned earlier, in terms of the disparity in terms of reaching the older person. So, but in our context of the discussion earlier on, this training in IT has to do with the lifelong learning opportunities that have been designed by many countries to help older person to actually connect with families and friends, and also to order online during COVID-19. So these kind of skills are important to be shared. And we also showed Ms. Ratnam, I think, shared her experience in Singapore, and many of the countries also has programs to assist older person in terms of digital literacy, and digital literacy should also be included in the health and social programs for older person. Aside from day-to-day use of technology, we have to prepare older person for health informatics and decision making using digital platforms. And this can be done by the lifelong learning programs, formally or informally, through intergenerational programs and things like that. Because in Malaysia, we have the University of the Third Age, which teach older person to be digital natives and things like that. And also in the program that was mentioned earlier, the intergenerational support in teaching the technology, as was mentioned by Ms. Ratnam, is an example of building a society for all ages, which implies collaboration between generations. And several people mentioned, for example, in Singapore, there is brigades. There is a program called Brigades in Singapore, where younger volunteers train older people in IT skill. And also in Malaysia, we have university students teaching older person in IT skill. And for example, in the institute in the institute in UPM, we also have the University of the Third Age, where we also teach older person about IT knowledge, and they even use this IT knowledge to even advertise and market their products. So all these came from the previous discussion, and I think there is a lot of opportunities and of social connectedness if only we as older person and also we as in the other sectors in the society look at older person as a resource and a valuable resource in the future, because we know that the shrinking of younger person will mean that we have a huge bulk of older person, and the thinking process for this is to think as the person as an untapped resource that can be mobilized for nation building, and also the healthy older person can assist the other older person to work together so that they can contribute to society, and in that sense being very active that reduces the healthcare cost, as the interaction and the socialization that they do in the connectedness of activity in the programs will reduce healthcare costs and will also improve the situation. And in the end, the skills that they have they can even be the taxpayer of the future. So the silver industry, the elderly person can be the catalyst for the silver economy, where a lot of them are doing a lot of things even now. in Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you, Tengku-san. I think very comprehensive. Can we have somebody from China who was going recorded, couldn't come, but made an intervention. Can we see it, please?
主持人好，各位代表好，感谢大会邀请，我来自中国。我去年退休了，也进入了老年生活，和我92岁的父亲住在一起。我退休后领到了政府发给我的老年助残卡，可以免费乘坐公共汽车，去公园游玩、商场购物、医院就医都会受到优待，社会对我们很尊重。我还应邀到了一个社会组织做兼职工作，以此来丰富我的老年生活。同时，我还成为了北京老年服务协会的一名志愿者。中国政府非常重视老年人的生活，国家将积极应对人口老龄化提升为基本国策，制定了《老年人权益保护法》。家里的老人可以由子女陪伴，也可以去机构。政府建了很多养老机构，比如说福利院、敬老院、养老驿站等等。每当我到这些机构参加服务的时候，都会看到很多老年人在机构里一起交流沟通，他们唱歌跳舞非常开心，并不孤独。在社区还有很多像老年书法协会、老年营养协会、老年口腔保健等等这样的民间组织，他们自发地组织老年人开展文化传承、强身健体、提高健康素养等活动。为了关心老年人的健康，中国政府在基层推行家庭医生签约服务制度，每一位老年人可以在社区医院与自己的家庭医生签订合约，家庭医生会根据每个老人不同的情况，提供健康教育、预防保健、疾病诊治、康复护理、长期照护以及安宁疗护一整套的连续综合的全流程服务。我还特别想说的是，对于失能和部分失能的老人，在他们自己养老金和基本医疗保险外，政府还给予他们不同标准的补助金，用于购买失能护理服务。还有就是临终关怀。3年前，我的母亲去世了。中国人对于临终老人是很难面对的，但这几年在社区医生专业指导下，他们缓解母亲疾病的症状，给予舒缓治疗，特别是对亲属给予精神慰藉、人文关怀，让我的母亲有尊严的离去，让我们亲属很安心。当然，中国老年人很多，我们还希望政府在社区、在家庭老年人护理方面培养更多的人才，在社区设置更多的老年人康复护理病床，让我们将来的老年生活质量更有期待。我就说这些，谢谢大家。
Thank you, Mishu. I think it was very comprehensive overview of the achievements, challenge that the country with 300 million people, over 300 million people, older people has, not like China. We have Miss T. Tam from Vietnam. Good morning. How are you feeling, Miss T. Tam? Good. Please give us your impressions about how the extensive network of intergenerational self-help clubs connected with the COVID. How do they work? They are impressing everyone in Asia. Everyone who sees the intergenerational self-help clubs comes motivated. Tell us what is the secret of those clubs.
Vâng, tôi là chủ nhiệm câu lạc bộ liên thế hệ tự giúp nhau tại Việt Nam.
Thì tôi giới thiệu qua cái câu lạc bộ xong đến cái chống Covid. Vâng, cái câu lạc bộ
I am the chair of an ISSC in Vietnam, Intergenerational Self-Help Clubs in Vietnam. Before I talk about the activities of the clubs in COVID-19 time, I would like to give a little bit introduction about my club.
Câu lạc bộ chúng tôi có 53 thành viên, chủ yếu là người cao tuổi chiếm 73% và nữ giới chiếm 70%, còn lại là tuổi trẻ là 27%. Có già có trẻ để hỗ trợ giúp nhau trong cái sinh hoạt hàng tháng của chúng tôi, như là tập thể dục dưỡng sinh, đo huyết áp, phối hợp y tế chăm sóc sức khỏe, tổ chức khám sức khỏe 2 lần trên một năm.
We have 53 members, and around 70% of which are older people and women, and we have both young and old, but majority are older people. And we have the monthly get together, and we do a lot of physical exercise together regularly. We also, in collaboration with the local health station, to organize 2 times health checkup for the members. And we also conduct monthly health monitoring, like a blood pressure measuring and weight measuring.
Chúng tôi có 10 tình nguyện viên chăm sóc thường xuyên cho 5 thành viên người cao tuổi, khó khăn, bị bệnh tật, cô đơn, chăm sóc từng hàng ngày.
We have 10 home care volunteers who provide care services for 5 older people who are frail and poor with disability, and we care for them almost every day.
Chúng tôi chăm sóc về tinh thần, văn hóa, văn nghệ, luôn mang tiếng cười đến cho các thành viên trong câu lạc bộ.
In our club, we take care of both physical health and mental health, and we sing together, we dance together, we have organized many cultural performances, and so we enjoy with each other.
Ủng hộ tiền, vật chất, ngày công cho những cái thành viên trong câu lạc bộ, ngoài câu lạc bộ khó khăn.
We not only take care of our club members, but we do, as a club, we do a lot to support the others who are non-members in the communities, such as we provide our labor days, we mobilize the resources in cash and in kind support to support those in need in the communities, both club members and non-club members.
Hỗ trợ những người cao tuổi mà khó khăn để có cái hồ sơ tiếng nói đến cái chính quyền để người cao tuổi được hỗ trợ cái thẻ bảo hiểm y tế và được trợ cấp hàng tháng.
We also do a lot to help older people and other people in the communities to access to their entitlement scheme of the government, such as we help them to prepare the procedures, paperwork, so that they can receive the monthly allowance and receive the health checkup, health insurance cards. And we also do a lot so that the voice of older people can be heard.
Như tôi đã nói ở trên, câu lạc bộ là đa số là người cao tuổi và là nữ giới. Đây là đối tượng dễ bị nhiễm Covid.
Yeah. So as I already shared earlier, most of the club members are older people, and majority of them are women who are very vulnerable to COVID-19 infection.
Câu lạc bộ cái hoạt động câu lạc bộ đã giúp cho cái chống Covid rất tốt trong cái truyền thông chống Covid qua cái loa đài của khu dân cư và tạo nhóm Zalo để tiếp cận các cái thông tin truyền thông về Covid và các hoạt động khác.
Yeah. So what we do to support our members and community members in COVID-19, we already provide a lot of communication or prevention awareness on COVID-19 for our community members through the loudspeakers. And we also set up the Zalo group in the communities. So in Vietnam, Zalo is very popular social media channel, so that we can we can connect with each other during COVID-19 social distancing.
Cùng với chính quyền tổ chức cái tiêm phòng vaccine Covid, đến nay chúng tôi có 100% được tiêm 3 mũi.
Yeah, and we also work together with the local authorities to encourage the club members to be vaccinated, COVID-19 vaccinated, and now 100% of the club members have the 3 doses of the vaccine.
Tuân thủ theo quy định của nhà nước, đeo khẩu trang thường xuyên, khoảng cách, giữ khoảng cách.
We encourage our members to comply with the government regulation in COVID-19 prevention and control, such as always wear the person mask, keep distancing, etc.
Tình nguyện viên có hệ thống tình nguyện viên giúp đỡ tại nhà. Cái giúp đỡ COVID này rất là tốt.
Our 10 home care volunteers play very important role in supporting the homebound and bedbound people during COVID-19.
Và chúng tôi hỗ trợ những người khó khăn, ốm đau về tiền, gạo và khẩu trang.
We supporting them with a number of facial masks, cash, and also rice and other things that they need during COVID-19.
Chúng tôi còn vận động cộng đồng cùng với nhà nước để có cái nguồn kinh phí hỗ trợ cái người cao tuổi sửa chữa lại nhà cửa.
We also mobilize the community support, and also we also work with the local government to have more resources to help to do housing program for the older people in our communities.
Và tôi thấy mô hình câu lạc bộ liên thế hệ tự giúp nhau là điểm tựa cho thực hiện công tác chăm sóc và phát huy bảo vệ lợi ích người cao tuổi.
So in short, I would like to say that our intergenerational self-help clubs, ISSC, actually is the second home and the resource to support the people with difficulties, especially the older people in the communities in COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think one thing I have to say about the intergenerational clubs in Vietnam, they have demonstrated to be very relevant to the lives of older people in Vietnam. The government has adopted them as official policy and is aiming at its expansion. But there is one other factor, that the Vietnamese are very willing to share their experience with other countries in the region, and they have been sharing it with Bangladesh, with Iran, with Cambodia, with Indonesia. So we are very proud to be partners with you in the quest of developing intergenerational clubs. We have Ms. Jinat from India. She's given the perspective on this issue of isolation and the needs of older women from the perspective of a community in India. Can we see Ms. Jinat, the video?
वहाँ गाँव लाई जो कोनी और गाँव पानी री सुस्ता करो वो है ठीक रहे कोनी बुढ़ा ठंडा हो बुढ़ा तो कहीं पानी भर गरे बाड़ो थे ठीक है पानी अगर हलाओ ताया के और पानी सुस्ता करो वहाँ में बुढ़े ठंडे रे इलाज करो और गाँव में नर्स भी जाओ कौन और सभा कौन लेडो है कौन दूसरे अगो बुढ़े ठंडे जाई जे कौन गोली दवाई सुस्ता करो बीमारी इलाज हमारे गाँव में होना चाहिए हमारे गांव में डॉक्टर ने हमारे गृह महीने में एक बार चेक करना चाहिए लोग है पैसा बहुत कम में थोड़ी बड़ा हो हमारे बूढ़े महिला रे कोई तनख्वाह बद बूढ़े महिला में पैसा बदा हो 5 रुपये की हो कहीं 1000 12 15 करो दो जगह मोर पूरा पे को नहीं मैं मर पूरी चला दोरी हो रही मांग याड़ी था कोई हो हमारे समाज में मान बदले रोजगार में कम मेहनत रोजगार कम मिले मेहनत कम मिले कम हमारे महिला रोजगार बराबर मिलना चाहिए जो हमारे मोहनी बदले संपत्ति है संपत्ति में हमारे खेत रो धन रो बराबर संपत्ति बराबर चले बराबर है के कणे हाँ पाड़ी हाँ में हमारे संपत्ति है हमारे समूह हमारा बैंक में खाता खुले कौन जो खोलाओ हाँ सरकार हो नेड़ा खोलाओ सरकार हो नहीं देने हमारे बैंक में खाता खोलाओ
Thank you, Ms. Jinat. I think very powerful view. Can we move to the next point, the fourth point? Unfortunately, we're running out of time. And if we see the fourth question, unfortunately, Mr. Hassan from Fiji had some problems in communication. So we discussed, and it came up, the need for an international convention of the rights of older people. Why? Because in a way it's an international covenant that can provide a sort of a hat to all the implementation of different rights. And it, in a way, it was discussed that it complements the MIPA. It's a complement to the future. We also discussed, I mean, it was seen that in the future, how do we want to see the world in the future for older people now, older people in the future, for those who are middle-aged, for those who are children in the future. We assume, we hope to have universal social pensions in all countries, in the sense that it is proven to be a powerful tool to avoid poverty in old age, and it has some redistribution effects. We also, it has been argued once and again and presented here, the importance of universal health care for everyone. We cannot conceive a society in the future where health is seen as a business or health is restricted. You can get health services if you pay. If you don't pay, you cannot get the health services, the medicine you need. I mean, that's not the society that was aspired by people in the conversations. We also, healthy aging was seen as a very key element of promoting action, active aging, having healthy aging like this group of young people, I'd say senior citizens who are young at heart. And the other point that came out in the future is how can we talk about healthy aging and social security and all that if we have a climate that is deteriorating every time more, if we are having extreme weather events like heat waves in India that are very destructive, if we have floods, if the rise in sea levels is threatening the very existence of people in seashores. And the final point that was discussed in how do we want to look at the future is to rethink old age. Think of old age not as a stage in life, but a continuum of during the lifespan, and think of aging, an older person, not in terms only of the lives lived and the experience gained, but also in the terms of the life ahead of you. So those were the points that were discussed. And now, to finalize this session, I would like to ask five distinguished participants directly a question. And the question is, I don't have it here. Give me 3 recommendations in one line, 3 recommendations that you would make to your governments, yes, to implement in the future. 3 recommendations. I don't have the order that we had agreed the questions. Do I have it here? And so maybe we can start with, thank you. We can start with Mr. Kim from Korea.
Thank you.
3 priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Kilian. In general, I'm quite happy with my government. Nevertheless, of course, there's something we like government to give attention to and do something about it. Okay, let me enumerate it one by one. First, I like Korean government to make every possible effort to reduce the poverty rate of older people of South Korea. That is the highest among the OECD nations. Second request I'd like to make to my government is please help older people reduce their feeling of family and social isolation, while basically it is their duty to do. And third, I like Korean government to make a greater media efforts to reduce the general negative views towards older people in South Korea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you so much. Mr. Ichi, if we go still to the high developed countries, three priorities.
Yeah, first one, I'd like to ask the government to give us more health promotion programs to prevent old people from physical frailty and extend our health longevity. And the second one, we request the government to provide us more intergenerational social interaction programs to understand the need of the different generation each other. And the third one, it's not to request the governments, but we want to understand our attitude for our future by the government is that the old people be humble to the young generation as we are the model of their future. And the other one, at the same time, we should be, the old people, be positively proactive for our future. That is the message from old generation to the government. Thank you.
Thank you. I think especially the last one is very interesting to see, be humbled in connecting with the other generation. Can we ask Ms. Iswari from Malaysia, your three priorities?
Well, I'm 75 chronologically, mentally 25, physically learning to use a walking stick. Okay, now aging is a reality. You cannot prevent it. So first of all, I would say that we need to promote lifelong learning at all levels. Now, just now, Professor Dr. Tunku Aizan, she was instrumental in starting the University of the Third Age, and I was part of the growth. But now we are an independent body. But the problem is it's only confined to the Klang Valley. There have been requests to spread it, but due to certain concerns, we were not able to spread it. But we have government agencies that provide lifelong learning. My future intention is that they should extend it throughout the whole country. Now, secondly, there is a growth of increase in numbers of aged people. Now, many can't stay at home because their children are away and they get physically, mentally lonely. So we need to have care homes. Now, the care homes need to have three types. I would suggest there should be one for those who are independent living. They need minimum care, but allow them to stay there, they get help. Then you have the second group who are semi-independent, they need little bit of care. And thirdly, you have the totally disabled. Now, we cannot house the whole lot into one unit. There should be three entities. One from A, you move to B, B, you move to C. You can't put them all into one. Okay? Then, thirdly, people are living to a longer age. So we need to find ways of means of creating all kinds of activities and lifelong learning to help the older people and not let them be lonely, let them suffer, and And also we need to have intergeneration and create awareness between the young and the old that we cannot neglect the old people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iswari. Mr. Bal Tappa from Nepal. 3 priorities, sharp, short, to the point.
Okay, thank you so much to this time. So I have already mentioned the social security. Social security is most important for elderly people. They need little bit financial support. So last time I mentioned little bit 4,000 Nepalese rupees supposed to be $40. I mentioned $4. I want to correct first $40. So every month is getting like around $40. That is not sufficient. So I want to recommend it to little bit high. The second one is health aging. Health aging means health is wealth. So we need to health is wealth. Supposed to be we need to make a healthy situation like activities and give to opportunity for older people to participate in community work. So if they can involve and they can work, they can mentally and physically they will be fit. So I would like to recommend it for to make the healthy people, healthy aging. So similarly, third point is geriatric situation. Geriatric is the most important because why? So our the elderly people is going rapidly, is increasing, and their life expectancy is going high. So that's why they need the more hospital, doctor, nurse, paramedic. So that is the most important. They need to take care because we mostly we don't have a manpower for geriatrics. So supposed to be government should be made more manpower for the geriatric, and as well the community old age home. So that is the most important things. I recommended 3 things. Thank you so much for time.
Thank you, Mr. Tapa. Ms. Ratnam, you are the star of the show. Please tell us your 3 priorities.
The 3 priorities should be workforce discrimination, age, gender, race, favoritism. These come into the workforce, especially to the elderly. They say you're too old, you are not this color, that color, this color, all that kind of things. So that is one of mine. Another, youngsters from institutions like colleges, universities should be made or should include curriculums saying every month you must go and do a few hours of voluntary work, deal with the elders, go and spend quality time with them and teach them how to use the phone or tablets or whatever they have. And then everything will run smoothly. The youngsters will learn from the older elders because they will be getting older and going into that stage. So they will realize, okay, one day I will be like them. This will make awareness for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ratna. I think, yeah. Yes. You want me to read this? Oh, okay. Ms. Ubanda, you want to talk about the priority of your government? You can have 1, you can have 2, you can have 3. But what do you recommend to your government?
Yes. I speak sorry. Yes. I think government should consider and provide all the people age allowance, create income opportunity for the older people who still want to work. The second is long-term care. They should include providing free health care services and treatment for older people. And the last one is support OPA. Government could not provide all and on-time support. Government should support and initially for older people association, especially allocation, some funding and building capacity when they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ubanda. I think very clear 3 points. And we are coming now to the And I won't even attempt to summarize what has been discussed because it's so rich. It's the experience of highly developed countries, middle-income countries, low-income countries, where the needs are expressed in the same way, no? Income security, access to health services, but also providing the space to rethink age, to have active aging, active commitment, community engagement. So we need to, in a way, reframe the way we think old age and societies that are aging. Having said that, I want to finish and I want to ask Mr. Cabeza Hedi, who is the Deputy Executive Secretary of the UN ESCAP, to please give us the closing remarks. The floor is yours up there, Mr. Cabeza.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. It's an absolute honor for me to have these closing remarks. And like you, Eduardo, there's no way I could possibly summarize what has just happened and what we've heard as we've highlighted the voices of older people. But I hope that your invitation for me to close this session is my early entry into the club, a club that we all aspire to. Really, I think we've just delighted in your wisdom and experience over the past 2 hours. And I really do want to thank the Sal Foundation, Help Age, International, UNFPA, and all of those who helped to co-organize this incredibly rich event. I mean, for me, over the past couple of hours, you've made it clear, those of you who are here in the audience, online, that older persons are, of course, agents of change and highly active members of society. Over the last couple of hours, you've described many of the challenges that, of course, still exist and are faced by older people. We've heard about the lack of social protection. We've heard about the access to services, to healthcare. We've heard about technology, ageism, isolation, loneliness. And in general, I guess, growing old while coping with the seismic shift in our own societies, the disappearance of communities in the way maybe we knew them, and possibly in a change in what the delegate from Iran called our core values. And all of these challenges are compounded upon each other. But I think you've also made it clear how we can all benefit when older persons are fully included in society, when your wisdom, your experience is capitalized, when you are enabled to contribute and continue contributing to the economy, when you are enabled to continue to be an active member of families, of broader families, of communities, and these communities that are so dispersed, these families that are so dispersed, including many of our own, right, in the four corners of the world. And I guess, in short, I think you've inspired us all to become what Eduardo called at the beginning, hyperactive senior citizens, because this activism is so vital for us to be able to cope with a changing society that we have. And you've showed us many dimensions of population aging, which we still need to unpack. And I hope that we carry so many of your lessons from today, not just to the end of this conference, but from here to the review of the Madrid plan next year, and really highlight and bring into the heart of government the famous mainstreaming of the issues of aging. I think you made it clear that the importance of creating spaces in which older persons can contribute to society, spaces which allow us to some degree to change our mindsets and not think about, as Eduardo said, lives lived, but lives ahead. And this is so vital for us, not just in this room, but all of those who are making policies. And it's not policies about aging, it is policies about health, it is policies about the economy, it is policies about migration, it is policies across the board. But you did also underline the importance of including older persons in this policy making, right? And the planning and the monitoring and how we can mainstream aging and let our policy making include older persons across the spectrum. Finally, I think you've helped us to see that our understanding of old age must change. And it has changed, but it must change more with the increases in life expectancy and social and economic development. I mean, population aging has become a dynamic, in both concept and reality. You know, it's a continuum now. We don't know where to draw the line, quite frankly. And as you said, we have to dissect it. What does it mean to be an older person, an active older person, a less active older person? And how do we address policies? How do we have an enabling environment that deals with this entire spectrum? And just looking around this room, looking at this podium, it's clear that being 60, 70, 80 today is very, very different to what it was before. And to some degree, we still, the catching up is for the rest of society. I think it's us and the society as a whole that needs to catch up with a fast aging population that we heard just yesterday could be up to a third of the population of our region in the not too distant future. So for all of that, really on behalf of the UN ESCAP and the team, I really would like to thank you for taking the time to come here. Thank you for those of you who intervened online and took the time to prepare your presentation, not just today, but in the pre-meetings that we have, the conversation we had, and really tell you that it has been an absolute delight listening to you, and we've taken your words and your experiences very much to heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sayedi. Those words are inspiring, and I think we, in a way, summarize the spirit of what has been discussed. Thank you all, my dear friends, colleagues, brothers, sisters. Thank you, those who were online, and thank you, colleagues, friends from governments also for having a receptive ear to what older people say, because talking about older people without the voice of older people is, as I said before, is like having a symphonic orchestra without violins. And these people here, these younger people here, these older people here, were the violins of a fantastic melody. Thank you so much.